At this point, I would challenge you to almost pause the video and try a couple of these independent practice problems on your own, and then unpause it and watch this video through to see how you do on A, B, C, and D. So for letter A, I'm going to look for corresponding sides. I see that 5 corresponds to x. So I'm going to put 5 over x is equal to 6 corresponds to 30. And I did small to big, so I'm going to go small to big again, 6 over 30. Once I have my proportion set, we know how to solve proportions and can do that pretty quickly and easily at this point in time. The most important part is setting up our proportion so that we have small to big, and that things are in order when we set up our proportion. In this case, x is equal to 25, and when I go to label, I want to say that this is miles, because that's all my other labels. So in this case, x is equal to 25 miles. If I ask myself, does my answer make sense? This side is supposed to be a little bit shorter than this side. 5 times 5 is 25, 6 times 5 is 30. So I can see that I have the same multiplier here. So my answer makes sense because things are proportional. That's another way that I can see that things are proportional. So x equals 25 miles checks and makes sense. This next one, I have rectangles, 2 of them. Their angles are all congruent, and corresponding angles are congruent. So t and x are corresponding and congruent. U and y are corresponding and congruent. And then I also have corresponding sides that I know are proportional. So corresponding sides are proportional. And in this case, I'm going to just choose to go small side to big side. X over 14 is equal to small side to big side, in this case 14 over 28. So I could have done x over 14 equals 14 over 28. I could have done 14 over x equals 28 over 14. Or I can use small to big on this shape, x over 14 equals small to big on this shape, 14 over 28. No matter what proportion you set up, you should get the same answer that I get, so let's make sure that you did. If you get the same answer that I do, then you'll know that you set up your proportion correctly, even if it's not the exact same proportion that I have here. And so in this case, I'm getting x is equal to 7. When I label, I'm going to label it centimeters. And so here is 7 centimeters. Does my answer make sense? Well, 7 is half of 14. 14 is half of 28. I also see 7 times 2 is 14, and 14 times 2 is 28. So 7 seems reasonable and makes sense. 7 centimeters. On letter C, I've got 2 more rectangles. So I'm going to do small to big, which is 12 over 18. And then I'm going to do small, which is x, over big, which is 120. I'm going to use cross products to solve. And inverse operations after that. And when I do that, I get x is equal to, in this case, 80 inches. And I'm going to label my answer inches. Does my answer make sense? This is the last part of things that we just need to double check. 18 is much smaller than 120. 12 is much smaller than 80 inches. So I think that my answer makes sense and checks. On letter D, the very last one here, if these 2 figures are similar, which it says that they are, we just have to determine corresponding sides. And in this case, we have 4 sets of them that are labeled. 36 corresponds to 4. 90 and 10 correspond. 126 corresponds to 14. X corresponds to 7. And by definition, similar figures, their corresponding sides are proportional. So we can pick any set. In this case, I'm going to go green to green. 90 over 10 is equal to purple over purple, x over 7. And then when I use cross products, 10 times x is 10x. 90 times 7 is 630. Divide both sides by 10, and x is equal to 63. And so at this point, we've solved another 4 similar figures on the first side, and we did 4 similar figures on the inside here. Hopefully these ones you were checking your answers and making sure that things were correct with your paper. At this point, if you want a challenge and want to try some of the problem solving on your own, I would definitely recommend that. If you would rather watch the videos and follow along for the last one, that's okay too.